My sister and her ruthless parenting drove her son to attempt to take his own life at 16. After she had a stroke, he said he didn't care if she lived, and when I agreed with him, my family declared war on me. So I come from a big family. We are 5 siblings, 2 sets of twins. 50F, my sister, her twin died in utero, 47M, me and my brother, 42F, my other 2 sisters. Today, we're talking about our biggest one. My parents here were really careful not to parentify him because they both had the same fate in their family. They took good care of all of us and have fruitful and satisfying careers. The problem is, at least not for my sister, they didn't push us there. They encouraged, but they never had the expectation. This was a problem for my biggest sister. She always found them lazy and unmotivated, and she limited contact with us after she graduated law school. She has become a really successful lawyer, married to a renowned surgeon who is my friend from medical school, a really ambitious guy who is also a real OCD, and had his son at age 32 via IVF, and it was all planned. After she had her son, aka my nephew, she started to push him really hard. She was trying to make him read at the age of 2. She sent him to piano lessons from age 4 and had one-to-one tutors since he was 1st grade. He was never allowed to have free time, and every moment of his life was curated. The only time slot he had was Saturday afternoon, and where he would visit my parents, and we always planned events and free time for him. Then his teenage years were absolute hell. He was forced beyond his capacities by my sister and brother-in-law, and when he was 16, he tried to unalive himself at the hospital that brother-in-law works at by stealing benzo from the nurse counter. After that, he had a good time in the inpatient ward. 5 months in ward, 3 months in a group home, and after that, he wanted to stay with me. I'm the only one of my siblings who does not have a kid, and I live with my husband in a 3-store villa, so he can have the roof to himself. Then, brother-in-law had an awakening, and he divorced my sister after this. Him and nephew had a year of family therapy, and last summer, he moved back in with brother-in-law, and he also decided to pursue medicine. I don't live in the US. Medical school starts directly after high school, and it is 6 years, by the way. Then, during that time, my sister really dug into her heels. She blamed us and my brother-in-law for letting him to be weak, and she said he was alive, and he had to endure this so he could become resilient and untouchable. Then she said in court, "I don't care if he feels bad. This is life. You either climb the ladder or you fall down. If you fell down, there is nothing we can do. Life goes on." And I have to say, I never saw someone look with pure anger like the head judge. And he said to her, "Well, you really are a successful lawyer, I should give you that, but you are a really terrible person and a being that can't be called a parent." And then he turned to my brother-in-law and said, "You need help, a lot of help." And then, last January, my sister had a mini stroke, and she genuinely started to think about her life, as I understood from my brother, who was the only one of us that checks up on her. And last week, she tried to reach out to my nephew, but he directly said he did not care if she was alive or not. When she tried to talk to me about that, I briefly said, "What were you expecting, sis?" And I closed the call. Now, all of the family calls me an a-hole, and they think I should have supported her. Edit. So, I do remember how her fellow lawyers talked about her after this, and she was very heavily criticized. I have some high school buddies who are lawyers, and they had very juicy gossip about her. She's one of the lawyers they call Haifisch in German. She is known for relentless ambition, an almost pathological hunger for dominance. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Wow, growing up with her as a sibling must have been really fun." So, she did not interact with us much, so I can say she wasn't a big problem for us. She was a big problem for our parents, though. I remember her yelling at them for not sending her to the boarding school because they thought it had a really unhealthy school culture. I wonder sometimes if they have sent her to that school if she would have woken up way earlier. Then user 2 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. Your poor nephew. He never got to have a childhood. He only got to be a kid for a few hours a week, and the rest was spent constantly working. His home life was so horrible that an effing inpatient ward was a good time for him," as he said. "OP, your sister is the devil. I hate her on your son's behalf. She's evil. Honestly, your brother-in-law is incredibly lucky that his son gave him another chance because he's just as guilty for standing aside." So, my brother-in-law only knew hard work and grinding, and I don't blame him. He was and still is one of the best cardiac surgeons in my area, and I work with him at the same hospital. He is a really good guy at heart and came from a really poor family. I got him, and his son saw him from a really different light when my sister wasn't in the picture. Life is complicated. Then user 3 commented and said, "So, do you think possibly presumably he was also victimized by your sister? Well, to a degree, yes. My sister calculated her marriage with him at a precision. At divorce hearings, when he was asked about her marriage, she said it was calculated to maximize the benefits of being married with another person and just saw it as a step in the right direction. And then regarding the divorce, I think she saw them as dead weight and wanted to be free as soon as possible when brother-in-law sided with my nephew. It is really hard to understand what my sister's logic is. Then user 5 said, "So, I don't know if you've already described it, but can you tell us about your parents' parenting style, philosophy, and methods to the madness? I am prompted to get any help I can, as I have a young daughter that is a bit of a meanie and not one that likes to take advice. And by the way, OP, you're not the a-hole. I think you think it was a long time coming." So, my parents were heavy on natural consequences and being tolerant to others. Work and general ethics has always been important for them, and they always relied the message of collaboration and cooperation. They also really emphasized on the need of relaxation and self-care too. My father and mother are also in the healthcare field, although they got retired when I was in residency, and they saw too many burnouts. And then finally, user 6 commented and said, "Okay, I'm really confused about the family dynamic established by your parents. Your first paragraph is extremely unclear. Did they create this precedent of pushing all of you into high-powered careers?" Honestly, no. I chose medicine, but I really liked it. My brother became a welder because he didn't have a thing for academics. My younger 2 sisters are preschool teachers, and one in special education field. Honestly, they are really chill people. Update. 2 days later. So my brother had a talk with her. He laid down all the stuff I told her and made her read this post. And to our surprise, she knew about Reddit. When she asked about what to do, he said she should be working on herself and maybe be in peace with the fact that she will probably die alone in a care home. He then said to me she was looking really defeated, but she got why she was abandoned by the family. She will leave the town for transferring her office to another state because she said to me it was too much pain for her. Again, egocentric perspective, but she will leave at least. She is leaving next Monday. And then, my nephew said he wants to look at her eyes one last time before leaving, so he will meet her at Saturday afternoon at my brother's house. Update. 2 days later. Good morning from the gray city of Cologne. I have an update, and after 24 hours of answering people's questions, I will log out of this account because I think it's over. Also, Reddit is really overstimulating for a guy who is in the second half of their 40s. First of all, my family does not blame me for her situation. They think I was an a-hole for not listening to her. They apologized after seeing the post, though. All is well, we communicated, and I also apologized for being too rough on them. My sister, though, is another story. Last night, we went to the house of my brother and sister-in-law. She was there, sitting with no expression, just a dull face. When my nephew greeted her, she just said, "Hello, son," with a really neutral voice, scary even. She looked at him after 5 minutes of silence and said to him, "I failed you to raise. I gave you so much pain and I almost caused your life. And for that I am sorry. And I am sorry for not realizing it sooner. And at Monday, I will be leaving your lives and I will not ever be coming back. And I just want you to know that I did what I thought was best. And I understand now it wasn't." Then my nephew just looked at her and said, "I unfortunately know. I know and see you still believe that we have to move on. I will move on, mother, but without you. I will move with the people who loved me, not with someone who sees me as a training dog. Farewell, mother." And then he gestured with his head that he wants to go. I looked at my sister and said, "Bye, sis. I hope you find peace with your new life." And she silently nodded, and then we left. My brother and sister-in-law told me that she will legally separate her ties with us in every way possible. They are helping her to do that, and sister-in-law said, "We need this, and she needs this. Us being separate will be much better for all of us." Not a big ending, but it is an ending to this. My parents and her had a talk on Friday, and they realized the wounds are too big and painful to heal together. Not a happy ending, but at least it ended. So, thank you everyone for reading. And I also took note of your recommendations and I will be applying them. Edit. So I took your concerns and had a phone call with her. I spoke with her and she does not have an ounce of it. She said she does not want to come that close to death ever again. She is currently preparing for her new life and she is just like herself. Stoic, ready for new horizons, and leaving her old life behind. I am also a doctor, and I have my fair share of patients wanting to self-unalive, but she is fine. But also, thanks for your concerns about her. And honestly though, I don't care anymore what is happening to her. My parents care about her death, and this is enough for me. Goodbye. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Hello, German lady here, 48, aka same age as OP and his siblings. And to be honest, I was not surprised either reading that this is a story happening in Germany. Our parents' generation is sadly a terrible one, and it's only partially their fault. They were born either in World War II or shortly after, to war-traumatized parents that were a part of one of the biggest crimes in human history and came from a nation of perpetrators of the Holocaust. Our parents' generation was raised in silence, suppressed emotions, need to function, and total lack of empathy. There was a huge emotional atrophy in our parents' generation that has bled into our generation. They grew up in the need to function and achieve to be worth anything, building from the ruins, guilt, and horrors of a war caused by their parents. My generation is full of emotionally stunted people that don't know how to build connections with their children beyond function and making them achieve something. Some did do the emotional work or had therapy to heal, but most have not or are just starting to now in their 40s or 50s, and our children have suffered for it. I see it in my own family and in myself. I was a kid in the late 80s/90s suffering from depression and addiction, and I still work on myself in therapy. I never got kids because I was aware of my trauma and me not being able to provide emotionally for myself, and definitely not any children. Through all of this though, I finished university and functioned my ass off, and I am career-wise the most successful of my siblings. They all got married and had children. These children are the third generation after the World War II generation, and guess what? Mental health is bad. I have an 18-year-old niece with major depression, anxiety, and emotionally not her age. My brother and his wife did not do the emotional work that they should have done to deal with their trauma inflicted by our parents. The difference is that my nieces and nephews have A, me, and B, my sister has done the work, and her kids are better off. My point is, OP's sister is not an exception. She might be an extreme, but there are thousands of stories like this or similar in Germany, and it's not talked about enough, and mental health resources are not enough. I believe this goes back to even before the World War II generation. This is the trauma that war brings to humans for generations, and the human race has not learned anything and did not have time to heal, and we're walking right back into it. So, the interesting thing is my parents are both pharmacists and before having children pursued professional and personal growth in the 1960s. They were born in 1949 and had my sister in 1974. At the time, my mother was actively working as a researcher in the pharmaceutical industry in the field of psychiatric medications. This makes the whole thing all more incomprehensible to me. Final update. 5 days later. So multiple people PM'd me and my mail was spammed with emails from Reddit, so I'm going to give this update and disconnect my email address from this account. To the people who were concerned, I sent the update and she laughed. Yes, she laughed that people were thinking she was going to take her own life. She said, "I'm getting better, even though I know I failed my son. He will be fine, I will be fine, and we will all move on." And I won't lie, at this point, I had rage on her. I unleashed everything and told her how could she be so swift and so fast from begging acceptance to indifference. And what she said really made me think that she is a sociopath. Then she said to me, "You all catched me in the weakest moment, but after leaving you behind, I realized my biggest mistake was thinking I needed acceptance from you people." I then asked her if she felt bad when the judge burnt her at the court, and she said, "At that time, I was only relieved from being free of you, and when you question your mortality, you search for companionship intrinsically. But I know better now. Don't expect a call from me, and don't wait for a funeral announcement. Goodbye." And then she closed the phone. And at this point, I don't know what to tell other than I hope she dies alone in a caring home with no one to hurt anymore. But with this hatred against us, I hope she will die soon. Good night, everyone. So, I quite enjoy when we get stories with heavy cultural aspects because it offers some different perspective. I also appreciate the fact that American Redditors can't apply their hammer mindset onto these type of stories all the time. And I say that as an American myself, but the sister does sound a little crazy and insane. And like that one commenter mentioned, she seems to be more on the extreme end. Going back to just the original part of the story, working the kid to want to bring him to take his own life, that is insane. She made him get a job at the age of 6. He filed a tax return for his 7th birthday. What kids do that? And if she thinks resolving these problems entails her removing herself from the situation entirely and not even attempting to repair these relationships or do it alongside everyone else, well then go ahead, because it seems like nobody wants her there anyway. But that's what I have to say. Feel free to comment what you think. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thanks for watching, commenting, have a really good day, and bye-bye!